Traders, this is Christian Farmers, Strategic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Monday, December 22nd. Well, welcome back, I should say, to these videos, to the end of day videos. I've been traveling a bit, and it just was a little bit too hard for me to do these end of day recaps. So, in any event, we'll go over some things today. I was very busy on this weekend, just playing catch up. I put out two videos for members, one of which I was going to make it one long video, and I said, you know what, don't do that. This is going to be too long. And I put together about a 45-minute video on just rules of trading. Went through Marty Zweig's 1990 rules one by one and talked about how each one is still valid, and didn't just talked about different setups. And I think the reason why I wanted to do that video now is because, number one, we're getting close to end of the year, and I think it's a good point to kind of review. And because I also walked through a couple trades that went well, trades that didn't go well, and why. It just talked about how, just monitoring risk and so forth. You're going to have setups and the next year that are going to look great. Some of them are going to work, some of them are not. What was the other thing that I did? I reviewed open positions. And just kind of talked about, just kind of getting ready for that next year and having those rules to go so that you can kind of start the year going. So if you want that video and want to get prepared for next year, we are now running a special, which includes both the trading room and the MarketWebs indicator that I use. 2 months for the price of one. It's a great intro to kind of see what's going on and see how we're using technicals and option flow to make some decisions. But the other reason, the other reason why I wanted to do that video was because there was just a lot of things that looked like they were setting up pretty nicely going into this week. So I'll review a little bit about that. And what's nice too is that I really thought that they were more or less like low risk setups, meaning where they're going to work and where they're not going to work, right? When something just begins to turn and come back above the moving averages, as well as the value areas, and again, I'll give you a couple examples of that. That you could put your stop right below those moving averages or right inside the value area, and there you go. Like there's your lower risk setup. So, by the way, everything that we're going through in this video is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations. Before I get to the charts, I'm just going to review some of the what happened today, or what were your best groups, some themes for the day. So really kind of interesting, the VIX really fell again today. We almost got into a 13 handle for the VIX, but just crazy how fast that's materialized in terms of what the VIX has been doing. What performed well today? It was, basically your small caps and micro caps. They didn't really do much last week. They were a little bit of an underperformer in relation to everything else last week, but they actually did well today. And I think they did well. They perked up on Friday too. So I guess what I'm referring to is maybe the majority of the week last week, but they got going on Friday and they continued. The Qs actually underperformed, only up 0.3 of a percentage point. I'll go over what areas have been strongest in there, but you could see why I always use this column. And I'll just blow this up for you a little bit so that you can see this. But why I always use this column, because this way I could see what's being bought after the open, right? Especially on gap up days, or days where we're under pressure. You want to see what outperforms the most. You want to see what happens from 9:30 to 4 o'clock, not just overall. But yeah, there was profit taking, and that was like right off the bat today in the Qs. SPY finished up 0.6 of a percentage point, and as said, small caps outperformed. Bitcoin also just could not hold that move that happened in the overnight session too. That gave back 1.8%. Still finished positive on the day. Squeaked out. I would call that squeaking out a gain. And look at gold and the metals just on fire. GLD was up 2.3% today. As I mentioned, the VIX was down. Look at the performers for the day. The silver miners were up 3.9%, even though they gave back. I actually sold a silver miner that I was long today. Just took some profits in some things like that was PAAS. Also ATI, which was a nice trade for me, another name in the metal space. Aerospace and defense up 3.5%. You could kind of tell that that was going to happen today after the move that you saw last week, towards, again, mostly on Friday, but some Thursday and Friday, where that group really picked up. The solar group was on fire today. Strong. Biotech was up 2%. As mentioned, gold miners. KWeb is wrong because it went ex-div today, so ignore that. Where are the semis? Yeah, the semis couldn't really hold up. Again, they finished positive for the day. If you came in long the semis, you're happy. They were up 1% for the day, but they gave back. They were one of the most. They were one of the sectors that gave back the most today from the open, down 0.75% from the open today. And uranium did the same thing today too, down 1% from the open, still finishing positive. All right, so let's get to some charts. I don't, there's this, I'm going to bring up this one chart really quickly. I guess I haven't seen a correction on this yet. This is Parsons. They came out with a note, a lot of these names are the aerospace names are getting awarded contracts for the Golden Dome. And it says Parsons wins $151 billion of contract. I would think that means 151 million, but I haven't seen a correction on that. So yeah, so that's still going. That's one of the names that's been a little bit depressed. It's up to $68 here after hours. So again, $151 billion. There's multiple sources that are saying it's $151 billion. That's one of these ones that have been pretty beaten up. But anyway, let me get back. I'll get back to this group, the defense group and aerospace group, because I put that group on my watch list as the whole ETF because I just saw so much strength in this. So let me get to the right chart here. Let me get to SPY first. I always kind of start with SPY. If you haven't been watching my end of day videos, I always start with the big picture and then talk about some of the individual names as the video goes on. But here's what I was referring to. Here's your setup from Friday, right? Just sneaked above the value area on Friday, and also above these short-term moving averages. And I had mentioned in the trading room, here's your setup. You want to go long, go long the overall market rather than pick an individual stock. And of course, you could do that with options or SPXL if you wanted leverage to that, if SPY is too boring for you. But it just seemed very simple for that. And also what I liked about that too, if you just rewind to last week, is we kept on bumping up against this resistance last week. So my thought was, once you break it, we're going to break it. And because here's where we were in the beginning of last week. We kind of settled in around this 680 level, tried and failed, and then finally we got through it. And that's sometimes the case. Sometimes trading requires patience. And sometimes it really tests your patience when something will do this 3 or 4 times in a week and fail. But it just looked like things were going to move past. I also thought, if you go, and I'll go over the Qs chart now, but I really thought last week that this Wednesday was the washout. It finally seemed to get sentiment. I think sentiment has been way over the tips of its skis for the last few months. I think, and I've talked about that in previous videos. I'm not going to talk about it in this video, but I've talked about how positioning margin balances at an all-time high, cash balances at an all-time low. So it needs, the market needs some shakeout and some washout. And I finally saw, like, people seemed to be very upset last Wednesday with their AI stocks and their high growth stocks. And that sometimes spurs enough of a shakeout to get the market going again. Now, this Qs still is kind of caught here and is not showing. The Qs in high tech, even though they had a great day today, are not showing relative strength because this is not even above these previous highs, and it's not even outside of the value area for the month. So this is what's not, working as well right now. So my thought is, in high tech, or high growth, I should say, and the AI space, is to be highly selective and go with where there's strength. Right. And, you could play some names for this was another concept that I went over in my weekend video: trade versus more of a long-term swing trade or investment. And I talked about how a lot of trades, like a CRDO, for example, which looked like it finally turned last last week on Friday, right? But you could see what it did today. It finished down on the day. So, but it went all the way up to 156. But this is now a trade, right? This is, meaning like, okay, you get the turn and then you got to be really selective about how you get out of the name. Why, in my opinion? Because it's going to take a while. This isn't something that is like ready to go right now. It probably is going to go back and forth a bit and then maybe eventually resolves higher. So long term, like if your time horizon is like you like this name, you're going to sock it away and you're not going to look at it every day, that's fine. But if you're swing trading, like anywhere from a couple days to a couple weeks, like that may not cut it for this trade. It's got a lot of overhead resistance versus, right, what the optical names are doing. And this, I got long this name on Friday, nice follow through today, but this is no major overhead resistance. Yeah, I guess it's got this where it had earnings, but it's a bit different than some of the other AI names that are deep below the 50-day moving average. Also this one, right, LITE out to new highs. This optical group is very, very strong right now. Right. And even some of the memory names, I was watching them today. Micron is the star right now. Western Digital, that's the wrong symbol. Sorry about that. Western Digital, look at what Western Digital did today, 2.4%. So even this group has gotten a bit tired, I think, even though Micron had those good earnings. And again, going through, the semi group today, again, cranked out a gain of 1%, and that's not bad, right, to get back above the value area. And again, you could use the stop of 353 for this. But I think it's going to separate a little bit. I think that you're going to have your winners and losers. Google, just to kind of go over like some of the setups that I went over, I got long Google on Friday, and I was long Google for most of this move. And then I bailed out of it once it began to kind of break down a little bit. And then once it turned and got back above its 5-day moving average, which was Friday, I got long. Again, this didn't do anything major today, but I don't mind having something a little bit slower in my in my trading account because I've got some faster names. Another one too, just to kind of illustrate the setups, right? NTRA. This is the kind of stuff that I look for, and I went long this name on Friday. Really nice break higher, then comes in, sits down, right? And then you watch for the turn and you get the move. You try to wait for the move back above the 5-day moving average. Got it. And nice follow through today. Up again, not up 10%. Like, I'll get to the aerospace group next, but in any event, nice turn and that's it. Like, here's your stop is right inside the value area. So again, these are kind of some of the things that I went over in that weekend video for members. Is just talking, like, to me, that's more of a lower risk setup. Now again, you kind of have to be careful saying that because anything could happen, like in the overnight session. A name could have some bad news or something, so there's always that chance, right? You can't completely diversify away from that, but or think that there's no risk in a trade. But for the most part, like, exactly where this trade's going to work and where it's not. Let me get to that aerospace group because I thought that was super strong. I had mentioned on Friday, I said, look at how strong this group is. And I tweeted this out too, but I said, you don't have to pick and choose if being that Rocket Labs was already up. Rocket Labs had a huge day on Friday. It had another huge day today. It was up 10%. But if you didn't want to chase this candle, this candle that happened on Friday, and you looked around and you said ASTS is going and RTX is going. Right, look at RTX make a new high, right, today, up 2%, right? And if you went through and you saw some of these setups, look at WWD. Now, this is an expensive stock, but that's a really nice bull flag that happened there. And again, if you don't want to buy a $300 stock, you could diversify away your single stock exposure and just go long the ETF, and then you could size it up more than an individual name. Because again, the group is that hot right now. I went long some LH. What's this symbol? I get this symbol so confused because it used to be a different symbol a couple of years ago. But LHX L3 Harris. I like this, and they were awarded a contract. It didn't move that much. when I think it was awarded on Friday after the close. So I just thought that that was a good setup. But again, I could have just went along the ETF too. So, that's the point, is that you don't have to be picky and choosy with some of these things. I had somebody, I asked people if they wanted to see any particular charts. And somebody mentioned GE and HWM. So again, they all look pretty damn good. So you could pick a couple of them if you like the group. They're all, and they've all made a big move. So I think that you have to kind of keep that in mind a little bit. They're all a little bit extended. I would always go to the ones that had good earnings. Right, that's the ones that I'm going to tend to look at, because the other ones usually are going to underperform a little bit if they did not have a great earnings. But they get awarded one of these contracts and they're going to be okay. But yeah, I mean, you're going to see the same thing. They're all going to look pretty decent. I do like this KTOS. Again, this is an easier setup. Where would you set your stop? Well, right inside the value area, and then that if this thing is going to work and maybe gravitate up to the top to this VPOC up here at 90.70, so be it. All right, so that's another one. XME was the other area that I spent some time on this weekend. Again, did not close on its highs, and that's why I sold PAAS. But yeah, is this group? Would I get involved in this group right now? No. But I positioned into this last week, and I've been quite patient with GLD. So again, if you like this group, just wait for a little bit of a dip, or wait for some backing and filling. I did take another target in gold. I did not take it off. So somebody asked, are they stretched? Yeah, they're stretched. But you kind of have to be a little bit strategic and wait for them. You could look to see how far they are from the 5-day moving average. So yeah, to me they're all a bit extended. And now, like at this point in the trade, it's now just monitoring the trade, like either taking the trade off, or piecing out of it. So I still have my GLD position on after taking a target today, but I did take off PAAS because of that. Right. What else did I want to cover with you guys? Biotech, very strong. XBI also made a new high. So to me, like, these are where the areas that are really strong right now. And again, this will change, but it is the aerospace and defense group. It is the metals and mining. It is biotech and healthcare, with biotech making a new high today, getting back above this VPOC. The financials look very good. I got long Goldman Sachs last week, but this is nice, right? Nice little consolidation. So again, notice what happened here with the XLF. It got a little bit extended away from its 5-day moving average, and if you're patient, comes back in, and that's when you kind of wait for this to come back up, just like Goldman Sachs did last week. And I even got into this maybe a little bit too early. I think I got into this on Thursday. Intraday, it looked like it was going to break higher, and it didn't. It still closed below its 5-day moving average. And then it had some follow through for today. But again, I like both Goldman and Morgan Stanley. Actually had a bigger day today, it looks like. But same thing, right? A little bit extended, comes back into the 20. So these were so many of these setups that materialized Thursday and Friday of last week. Let's talk about the solar group, because I thought that was interesting. CSIQ is a name that I went over on Friday, and I said, hey, this thing's coming around. And I did that midday on Friday, and it did not close on its highs. But notice what it's done now today. Big move, up 10%. It's a low price stock. It's a $26 stock. So I think this the bullish 80% rule is in effect, and that is looking for a move up to 31.72. But this looks great. I mean, besides, again, you kind of have to get past the 10% move today, which that's a lot. But it's just kind of triggering too, right? It's just getting back above these short-term moving averages. Again, maybe Friday would have been a better entry price. Obviously 10%, but I did buy some First Solar today. Very nice break higher. And again, big move up 6.6%, but really the way that you kind of frame this is the first candle that's getting above the value area for the month. It's the first candle of the breakout. So I hope that this continues. It will have to get through this back in here, but I like this. I like First Solar. So again, notice the touch into the 50-day moving average, consolidation, waiting for that 50-day moving average to catch up, and now moving higher again. So I think that's pretty nice. Those are a couple of things that I'll be watching for tomorrow. Again, considering what the Qs are doing and not outside of the value area, I did not show IWM. Someone asked me for IWM. I think, once again, like you had to be, again, how many of these setups are so similar? Right, move back into the 20-day moving average, and then it started to go up. I actually tried trading IWM last week, and I didn't get immediate information back that it was working for me. So I decided to get out of that, which is fine because I went into some other things, but it had some nice follow through. You can look at it on the 1-hour chart too. Again, did not close on its highs, kind of came in a little bit. So that might set up for tomorrow. We'll see what the 5-minute value area looks like for tomorrow. Yeah, watch to see if we can hold on to this 253, and then maybe you could play, for a day trade even, value area, the bottom of the value area to the top of the value area, and then you could see what happens there. So you got a VPOC up here about higher 256.77. Let me see if there's any other questions that you guys trickled through. Somebody said one chart matters now, VIX. I don't know if that's the case. But wow, that's very interesting to see volatility get that low. So, predict, I know that the Santa Claus rally officially starts on Wednesday. We have a half a day on Wednesday for Christmas Eve, and Merry Christmas to everybody. Could we be front running the Santa Claus rally? We could. So I think, again, trade discipline, right? Make sure that when you get into a trade that you know where to get out of it. I will be trying to basically ride this move for as much as it takes us for the end of this year. But I would also not be surprised if it doesn't work because it's been front run a little bit. Reminder that the last 2 years, the Santa Claus rally didn't really materialize. And again, I think, like, if we go back, I don't know if I can bring this up really quickly just to show you this, but let's see if I can bring this up from last year. So if I go 12/23 to 12/31, don't worry, I'll bring this up in 2 seconds so that you can see this. Yeah, here we go. So last screen, just in case you're wondering, like what transpired last year. All right, so 12/23. Maybe I should go back a little more. Yeah. Look at how it was front run last year too. 12/20, we were up 1.2%. This is performance of SPY last year. 1.2%, 0.6%, 1.1%. Right. So then the last 5 trading days for last year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same thing. It started on 12/24. So you got a rally on the half day on 12/24 last year, and then you didn't get much there afterwards. So could I, do I think that it could happen the same way? Definitely possible. I don't know if we're gonna sell off like we did on 12/27 and 12/30. But what does this tell me? Don't be super greedy and just think that the market's going to go up, right? Folks on Twitter and younger traders, through no fault of their own, sometimes they just want something that says, oh, this is automatically going to happen. Right. Well, we know that trading doesn't work that way. If you were looking, again, this is something that came from my weekend video. If you are looking for 100% certainties, you're in the wrong business. Trading is not going to work for you. Right now, do we put probabilities in our favor? We try to, right? We know when the end of December is supposed to be more stronger on average, then we put that in our favor. And as long as we're getting a trading signal, like I mentioned with SPY and some of the other tickers, right, then you could put that to work. but there's no guarantees, right? Just like there's no crying in baseball, right? There's no guarantees in trading either. So I think it's good to keep this in the back of your mind. Again, I'm not predicting that we get this, but I also will be on guard in case we do. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Thanks again for joining me, and appreciate the patience with for me taking time off. And we'll have another end of day video tomorrow, not on Wednesday though because of the holiday.